Go, Jenny! Go! All right. Hey, I'm Athletes Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to chat with Jenny Hitchings and find out what makes her an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, please remember, if you enjoy our content, like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications. All right, let's get this thing going. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you kick us off with an introduction of yourself?
I'm Jenny Hitchings, and I'm 61 years old, and I live in Sacramento, California. Right now, I live with my husband, Andy. We've been married for, almost 35 years, and our little golden doodle, Mia. I do have 2 adult children, Molly and Maggie, and Molly just has 2 little kids, an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old. So I'm also a grandmother, which is really fun and also interesting because I don't feel like I should be a grandmother yet, but I am. And my daughter Maggie is engaged, so I'll soon have a new son-in-law. So I am a running coach here in Sacramento. I coach about 14 athletes, adults, but actually it's a remote coaching, so they're from all over the world. They can be, but a lot of them are from California area. I also coach middle school cross country and also a youth running club. So I put a lot of energy into the coaching when I'm not doing my own running.
Sure.
I'm also a master's competitive distance runner, and I hold 3 world records, age group world records, and about, I'm embarrassed to say, 10 American records. I don't know, over, different age groups, different distances. So that's my claim to fame.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of those records in a little while. But before we do, I want to get a little history of your athletic endeavors over the years. So fill us in on what you've done since maybe your high school days up until masters.
It's interesting. I get this question a lot, how do I do what I do, and how did you get started, and what's your story? And basically what it kind of comes down to is my story is I don't really have a story. I have my gene pool, my family's athletic, but I can't say that any of us were growing up really in competitive sports. I really didn't start doing sports until high school, and that was just for fun. Like I was on a soccer team. I swam for a year. I don't know, I just sort of tooled around with stuff. But growing up, I would never have said I was an athlete. And probably if they did that sort of senior poll, like what is Jenny least likely to become when she gets older, it would probably have been a marathon runner. But so I think that, my history isn't really very interesting, except that I started running when I was at UC Santa Barbara, so close to 20 years old. And that was just for fitness sake. And I haven't really stopped running, since then. It was just sort of this buildup when I was at school of, how far can I go? How fast can I go? Who wants to run with me? I just kept challenging myself.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of taken its, been this trajectory that I've worked towards now for, 40 years or something like that. But I really didn't become competitive or realize I was really good at running until mid to late 30s, 40 years old. So I've only really been running competitively for the last 20 years or so, and seem to have gotten faster the older I got, which is another thing I can't really explain. But I come from a coordinated athletic family.
What was kind of the pivotal moment that took you from just running for health and fitness to being a competitor?
I think I grew up in Marin County, Mill Valley, California. I went to school in San Francisco and lived in San Francisco for a while after we had our first child, Molly. And then really, it's been about 25, 30 years now. I've lived in Sacramento. When I moved to Sacramento, early 30s, around that time, I was still very much interested in running and I wanted to meet people. And I just met up with some people who introduced me to one of the running clubs here in Sacramento, the Buffalo Chips. And I started running with them. And from that point forward, I learned about racing and how to race and how to train and there's a lot of local things going on here, and just running with faster people who had more knowledge. And once I sort of got into that group and groove, I started to probably shine a little bit more and doing some more races. And I was, winning some of the age group stuff. And then I was winning some of the master stuff. And that's where I sort of just kept taking it to a different level till finally I got my own coach, and I worked with him for quite a while. And I still have, now I have a different coach, but I'm working with her, Jenny Spangler, who's an Olympian and her own marathon Olympian also. And from there, having a coach, that's really what sort of made things pivot for me as far as teaching me and me learning how to race and train and run, what to eat, what to wear, pacing myself, training regimens, like everything about it made me learn about running and, from having a coach, and then also, running in these running clubs in Sacramento.
Sure.
So, and Sacramento also has some of the fastest runners.
During this whole time of running, have you had any injuries or big setbacks that you've had to overcome? And if so, how did you do that?
Because I was a late bloomer, the injuries didn't really come on till later as well. And, I used to pride myself in my early 40s that, I never had anything going on. And then things sort of took a shift. And so, yes, I've had major injuries. One of my biggest ones, which I don't even know if it was an injury, but just sort of more of a deformity, where I had this Haglund deformity on my heel, and my Achilles was having a hard time sort of attaching or kind of getting around this Haglund deformity. And it was really giving me some severe Achilles issues. So finally I had to have that operated on, where they shaved down the bone of my heel. And, that was a good 3-4 months off, but it worked. And, and every time I have sort of these injuries or things that come up, I always get the, well, you got to slow down, or, you might not ever run the way you want to run again. And when you tell me that, well, then you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. So, but that was probably a major one. And then after that, for me, who also sort of prided myself on never breaking a bone, I have ended up with a couple metatarsal stress fractures and a torn hamstring. And a lot of these things happened too, just in the last couple of years. So 2024 was not a good running year for me, and just a lot of more healing stuff going on. But yeah, I'd say from some minor bone fractures to hamstring tears, those have been my injuries.
You managed to come through all of these injuries.
Well, you do, and you have to. I mean, it's the time off. It's the, it's then having the right doctors and the PT and really then the patients, because it's sort of just when you think you're coming back and okay, you just can't get started too soon, or it's that sort of 10 steps forward, 5 steps back, So it's really taught me about being patient with these things as well, or else. And if I am, and I heal correctly, then I can get back out there and do what I do, even though you never think you're going to. And as they say, like every time I get hurt, you're running obituary, over and over again. So I've died a lot of times.
Enough of the bad stuff, so to speak. Let's talk some fun stuff now. You mentioned some world records earlier when you introduced yourself to us. Tell us a little bit more about those, specifically what the events, the times, maybe where they happened, and so forth.
I think with my training, I never went into anything thinking I was going to break, a world record or an American record. It's just happened to be that way on that race day, and a lot too, because as I got older, my competition or the times were a little soft, for that 55 to 59 and 60 to 64, 60 to 64. So all these records seemed achievable to me. And I think it sort of started where I ran, I guess at 55, I ran like a 10K or a 6-mile race. And my time there was very, very good. So then that told me, wow, if I can do this 10K in this, and I might be able to break an American record in the 5K. And then, because I basically ran that during this, the 6-mile race. And so once I started seeing these times I was running, then I started to think, okay, well, maybe I can hit some of these American records. Yeah. And luckily Sacramento was set up for me to do that. A lot of the local races from the 5K, 10K, 10-mile, not the marathon, but have legitimate or eligible record courses, because these courses can't be point to point. They have to, there's a whole set up with these things. So, but here, and I knew race directors and I knew the races, like it was easy for me to pop in a race and see if I could do it because I didn't have to travel anywhere. After I got the 10-mile American record, then I got the half marathon. I just sort of went on. So then I went and did New York in 2019, really having no idea what that course was going to be like. It was my first time doing New York, and everyone warning me it was going to be probably the hardest, marathon I've done, which I thought Boston was harder personally. Or I think Boston's harder. But anyway, I did that and ended up not only with the American record, but a world record for that 55 to 59 in a 250. And then a year later, a woman from Australia came and broke it with I think a 249. And that didn't sit well with me. So I had to go and take it back. So I went to first Boston, but Boston's not an eligible course. But I did Boston in 2021 and did a 245.32, which was a world best. But because it didn't count, I then went to London in 2023 and then got the world record for 55 to 59 in 245.27.
Wow.
And then a few months later, I turned 60 in July, and then I ran Chicago and did the 60 to 64 one in 249. As you get older and, seeing how fast I could do it, I just, I knew that the record was reachable for the 60 to 64. But, but who knows, again, what kind of day you're going to have. Once you start doing those things, you want it. And then you want to start breaking your own records. And then it gets really tiring because, I'm chasing my own shadow sometimes. Like I don't need to keep going and breaking my own records. But I always want to do better.
Speaking of that, where are you going from here? I mean, are you chasing your own record specifically? Do you have any big events coming up? Are you trying to do something a little different? Where are you going? What's on the horizon?
After coming off of, I said, a bad 2024, I went and did Berlin, like really 3 or 4 weeks out of a walking boot, just because I was going to Berlin anyway. And, I just wanted to run it. So that wasn't my best race. It was, but I just wanted to get through it because it was going to be my 5th star for the majors marathons. And so I went and did that last September. And then, I thought, okay, this time isn't sitting well with me. So then I went and just did Tokyo 2 weeks ago. That was my 6th world major. So I'm now a 6-star finisher, which feels pretty good. And so that was sort of a goal then, like, okay, I'm going to go get my 6 stars. I want to go to Tokyo. I want to run faster than I did Berlin. I was in shape to break 3 hours, and I was probably on course to run 255. So it's always when something doesn't sit well. So the 317 I ended up in Berlin was not sitting well, and I was happy I finished. I was happy I could do that after really only a 14-mile long run, in a broken foot. But the goal was, okay, I want to go to Tokyo and I want to do it like a sub 3. And I was going to until I didn't. The day didn't work out for me because I did basically everything wrong you could do wrong up to mile 21 or 22. So I ended up with a 3:02, which isn't bad, won my age and, 20th American and these things that are great. But sometimes I'm not really interested in so much winning my age group or, those things. I'm more interested in my times. So when you ask, like, what's the next goal? Like, I really want to, and I need to show myself that I can still break 3, that's there, that these things were just stuff that happened, but I don't really feel I'm now in that point in my age where I can't get under 3 hours anymore. So that'll be the next goal. And maybe that'll be California International Marathon. But marathons are getting tiring and they're a lot of work. And I put a lot of work and energy into them and thought I get incredibly stressed out before I race. So I'm going to take it easy for the next, 6 months as far as short, half marathons and down. Have a 10-miler next month and just play around with some shorter distance and speedier stuff right now.
Well, just give us maybe a typical week in how you train, whether it's kind of off season or in prep for a specific race.
Normally I would run 6 days a week and then 1 day fully rest day, don't do anything. And now I've sort of moved into some 5-day-a-week running, but then throwing in the Peloton or maybe actually I've been doing a little bit more of outside riding as well, cycling. And that's helped, with cross training for me because I've never been a great cross trainer. So when I'm not training for a marathon specific, I probably try and hover around, 50 miles a week of running. And it's always usually one speed type day midweek, and then incorporate some kind of tempo progression, longer intervals into my longer run. So I've moved away from the kind of that Tuesday, Thursday speed stuff long on the weekend. And I tend to just do 2 speedier ones. So midweek, fast, short stuff, and then longer on with my long run. And that seems to work well for me. I'm also trying to add in some strength, which I'm really not good at either. I don't know what it is sometimes about some of us runners. Like we can, anyway, maybe it's because I don't enjoy it, but I've been doing some Orange Theory stuff, trying to work on upper body strength. And probably this is why I'm a distance runner. I don't really enjoy the minutes, the 400s, the really short bursts. They're hard for me. They're hard for everybody, but I do those, on midweek. And then the long ones. And I love the progression run, and I like more tempo runs, and because those come naturally to me, how I run. I just tend to get faster. I like in a progression run, or I like just holding pace for a while.
If you are going to do a speed workout, maybe some repeats, 400s, 800s, 1000s, whatever it is, what kind of times would you run those in? How many would you run? What kind of rest? Kind of give us an idea of what, as a marathoner, what you would do with that.
Usually the 400s and down, we don't always time. It's just sort of effort based. Sometimes my coach doesn't necessarily give me a time to hit. But once we get into the 800s, it's usually, trying to run them under 6 minute pace, maybe, or around there. And yes, that's way faster than I would run a marathon, but those are just for that turnover stuff. And usually I'm with about a 400 recovery. And I wouldn't do any more than 5 or 6 of them. And sometimes we put them in between, I call it bookends, or you have maybe you'll do a 1200 and then 6 400s and then a 1200, just to kind of mix things up a little bit that way.
Okay.
But I'd say when I do the speedy stuff, trying to get under 10K-ish pace for me. And then my longer hauls are usually around half marathon pace. My pace is, and this is another thing about me too. I think probably a lot of my paces kind of stay the same. Like sometimes it's just sort of a joke. Like my 10K pace is the same as my half marathon pace, which is the same as my, marathon pace, which is maybe why I'm a good, distance runner. I mean, give or take, but there isn't a huge variation. Like follow those charts that say if you can run this, then you should be able to run this. And those never seem to really work for me.
The exercise is part of it, the training. How do you fuel your body? Give us your approach to diet and nutrition.
I'm careful as far as what I eat, as far as I don't like to eat super heavy stuff that don't make me feel good. But at the same time, if I feel like something, I eat what I want. But I'm a clean eater. I stay away probably more from fried, real creamy type foods overall. I'm careful as far as eating clean, but I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not vegan. I love a good chocolate chip cookie and ice cream, and I'm a wine drinker. So, so I have my drinks or my cocktails here and there, but I definitely am interested in wine, and I like to drink wine and learn about wine. So that's a part of my personality too. But my diet will change sometimes, obviously too, right couple days before racing or running. But overall, I just like balance. So I don't try and punish myself or reward myself with food or drink. And I'm also fortunate in the sense that I'm, have stayed thin. I, certain through hormones and menopause and this and stuff, I haven't put on any weight. So I don't have to be careful as far as putting on weight. I'm more careful just because of again, how it makes me feel and how it makes me tick or work.
If you were going to bottle your secret sauce to success in health and fitness, what would the ingredients to that recipe be?
Consistency, for sure. Hard work, motivation, and because I care. I think caring is a lot about it. I care how I feel and perform and what I'm about to embark on if it's a race. And because I care, it makes me motivated to do what I do. And I don't make excuses. So I would say a lot of it is about, consistency and no excuses. Like I sometimes just need to put some things aside and just, if I need to get something done, I get it done some way, somehow.
Yeah.
And flexibility. You got to also be flexible and have balance. So secret sauce, consistency, drive, like I said, caring about it, and not making any excuses. Like, get out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that goes with, getting older, all these things, like, just, you got to still go out there and do the best you can for you on that day at that time. Just do it.
Yeah. And, that's kind of a great segue to the question of, what motivates you to do it? Why do you keep doing it? You've had success, you've had some injuries, you've come back, you're doing it at this point in time. What's the driver?
The drive is still that I like to win. The drive is still that I like to still challenge myself and see that I can still do the best that I can, like testing where I'm at a certain time. And also, and this is something I've been talking a lot about lately, which is a harder thing to sometimes figure out, but running and racing and being who I am and what I've done has become a huge part of my identity. And when you have the running and racing mixed into who you are, or how you think people think of you, or how you think of yourself, or again, identity, it's a hard thing to separate. And I'm trying to work on that a little bit.
Jenny, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know what makes you an automathlete that's not done yet. It's been a lot of fun. I want to wrap things up here with just giving you the floor to give us some final thoughts.
But everybody can get out there and strive for something. And again, be the best, possible, you. Like, just, you don't have to compare yourself to other people. It's just, you need to just be proud of yourself. And along with that, you have to love it. You have to have joy and passion for something, or you won't keep it up. And I definitely have joy and passion. I love to run, which is why you're able to stay consistent. I'm able to stay consistent. So you have to love what you're doing. If you don't, then go find something else. And to also have just, along with that, as sort of we get older, you have to have balance. You have to be able to find the other joys, or have joy in your life with other things, and it can't all be completely focused on sometimes this one thing you're trying to achieve or be. The balance is huge, especially if you want to keep friends and family. Everyone just wants to get away from you. So, but yeah, I'd say just be your best and have some balance in your life. For God's sake, just don't take things always so seriously, which I know can be hard to do.
There you go, folks. Jenny Hitchings. She is definitely an automathlete that's not done yet. Remember, keep moving, set your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.